Hello and welcome back to another episode of Dungeon Master Corner. Today we'll be going over the main and secondary profile for a Warhammer fantasy role-playing game. So we'll start off with the main profile. At the top here, you'll see that it is your weapon skill, your ballistic skill, your strength, toughness, agility, intelligence, willpower, and fellowship. These are your starting stats. All of them are expressed as a percentage. So, for example, your weapon skill, whenever you are making a test, whenever you're doing a melee attack, a melee maneuver, parrying, anything like that, you'd be rolling. Your goal is to roll under your current skill. So if you make an attack, this character would have a 37% chance to hit base. Now there are different actions you can do in situations that can increase and decrease that number. But as a base, you're going to be hitting more than 1/3 of the time. Same with your ballistic skill. If he's going to fire a ranged weapon, he's going to have a 28% chance to hit every time. Unless he takes another action to base or situation that's adding or minusing from that as number. So, nice, simple. One nice feature about that is it doesn't matter what class or career you're playing. As long as you have a high weapon or ballistic skill, you're going to be a decent fighter. Which is nice. So if you're playing a wizard, if you're playing a knight, if you're playing like a charlatan, a crafter, all you need to have is a decent weapon or ballistic skill, and you're going to be hitting most of the time. Also, if you're outnumbering, you can take an action to aim. If someone's knocked down on the ground prone, stunned, helpless, you can be very successful in just fighting. Now, with weapon skill, when you want to make a melee attack, your damage is going to be influenced by your strength bonus, which we'll get into in a second. So you don't hit as hard, but you can just hit as often as anyone else who has a high weapon skill. Ballistic skill is a little different, where your damage is going to be governed by your weapon you're using. So bows will have a set number. You'll roll 1d10, add the weapon's damage, and that will give you your damage. So next we'll go to strength. Strength is a fairly important skill, especially if you're going to melee fighting, because your strength will govern how hard you're going to hit. It'll influence all your skills that require strength, and it'll also influence how much you can carry. Now your strength bonus is based off your strength. So whenever you hit a multiple of 10, you're going to get an additional strength bonus. So as this character currently has 30 strength, he has a strength bonus of 3. So whenever he hits someone, he's going to add 3 points of damage to the damage roll. Now, it is important whenever you're looking to advance, to go into a different career, you always want to be making sure you hit the next multiple of 10, because that will definitely help influence how much you're going to be hitting for. Then we can go over to toughness. There are a few skills that relate to toughness, but it's mainly going to be using for damage resistance, resisting poison and disease, and also there are negating some stun attacks. Also with toughness, you do have a toughness bonus. So, just like your strength bonus, it is a multiple. It's the numbers divided by 10. So this person currently has 36 at the bottom there, and so he has a toughness bonus of 3. Now with his career, he can get 5 more points. So he just got a free advancement when we first make his character. Sorry, I put that in attack. So, but if you buy another advancement, you can change that number to a 5, giving him a 41, which give you a toughness bonus of 4. Now, it is important, again, once you hit multiple of 10, sorry, I'm rambling on, because whenever you take a hit, it's your toughness bonus plus your armor that will minus away the damage. So if you have a decent set of armor, so if you have, let's say, if you have light armor plus medium armor, which will give you a 3, plus his toughness bonus of 4. That gives him damage reduction 7. So meaning, even if he gets hit with a weapon, if it does less than 7 damage, he's not going to take any damage. So even if the weapon's coated in poison, it doesn't matter. Poison, you have to do at least 1 point of damage. If he did 7 or less, he takes no damage. Now, there are certain magical abilities and attacks that can actually either bypass your toughness, bypass your armor, bypass both. And there's also a few weapons who have armor-piercing qualities, so they can actually bypass a point of your armor. But generally, most attacks you're going to get, it'll reduce the damage, which is super nice. Next, we'll have agility. This is a very important stat. Obviously, it's going to be how quickly you move, so it will govern several of your skills. One of the big one, if you're trained in the advanced skill dodge, it is very important because it gives you an extra way of negating damage, because normally you get 1 parry per round. So if you have a shield, an offhand, or taking a parrying stance, you can use your weapon skill to try and block away the attack. Now with dodge, you just have it every single round. So it's just an extra way to negate damage. Also, it influences your initiative. The way the initiative one works on this, it's your agility plus 1d10. So if someone has a 30 and you have a 40, the 30 can roll a 10, they have 40 agility. And if the person who has 40 rolls a 1, they're at 41. So having 10 points above someone else means you'll always go first ahead of them, which getting the first hit can be so important that you can almost win a fight right out if you're able to get a solid enough hit. Even just landing at critical can almost take out quite a lot of people very quickly. So it can be very devastating, just absolutely going first. And obviously, the agility would also affect all of your basic skills and advanced skills that are influenced by agility. Intelligence is a knowledge-based skill. It doesn't have as much interplay as the first 4 skills. It's strictly going to be all your skills, and also your knowledge and your language skills are influenced by intelligence. Obviously, being very knowledgeable about what's going on around the world, very important. But it'll be a lot more situational than the other, the other 5 skills that we've talked about already. Next, you will have your willpower. There are several skills that require willpower, but also it's going to influence your ability to cast and resist magic. Also, resist insanities, which we'll get into the secondary profile. To just have a bit more back to the interplay than the first 5 skills. Next, we just have fellowship. This is going to be strictly your use for your fellowship skills. It's just how well you're able to communicate and influence people. It's still important if for a social character, but depending on how you play and the game is run, it might not be as important. There are ways you can still increase in your just a base bonuses for it, just buying people like rounds of alcohol or buying food, or there are ways to influence, but it's an important skill to have. Next, we'll get into your secondary profile, starting off with your attack skill. So this is the number of attacks you can have per round whenever you're taking the swift attack action. It is really important to calculate, well, I guess it's really important to understand statistics on this one, because you can have an attack, you can make a single attack with an aim. That'll give you a plus 10, but most of the time it is just better to, especially if you're in melee, to roll out the 2 attacks. So you do a full round action. This character will get 2 attacks at 37%. But just to make it a little easier for math, let's say he had a weapon skill of 50. He could take a aim action, an attack, has 1 attack at 50%. Now, if he with a 50, if he did 2 attacks, he would have a 25% chance to hit twice, a 50% chance to hit once, and a 25% chance to miss twice. So with a 75% chance he's going to hit at least once. Now, it's really good for melee weapons. Now, with ballistic skills, it might not be as good for certain characters because depending on what kind of weapons they're using, they will have to reload after every shot. If you have a weapon that has multiple, like a clip, like repeating pistols or rifles or repeating crossbows, you can fire off multiple shots between reloads. But if you're running a bow that has a half action to reload with a rapid reload talent, which reduces your reload speed to minus it by half, so you get the free action, so you can fire multiple shots with a bow. It's just always important to keep in mind that you have the appropriate weapons and talents to get good use of your attacks. Now, wounds, obviously that's going to be your health. So this character would have 13 wounds before he starts taking critical damage. It is important. A lot of people that when they first start playing, that once you hit 0 wounds, you are not automatically unconscious like you'd normally in D&D. Just any excess damage you take after 0 wounds automatically becomes the value you use for critical charts. So let's say you had 5 wounds, and after reducing the damage, you took 7 damage. So you'd be down to 0 wounds, and you'd have 2 excess wounds left over, which that would be your base roll for your critical value chart. So obviously, the more health you have, the more likely you're going to survive being hit. Now, this character has starting off with 13. If you take a dwarf with max health at level 1, gets all the extra health he can get from all his careers, and the talent gets an additional one. The max a character can have is about 23 wounds. So, as you can see, this is a very low health game. This is why your toughness bonus and armor is so important to get as much damage reduction as possible. But then again, with the max health and best armor and toughness that you can get, it's statistically unlikely, but you potentially could still get one shot. The most damage ever seen done in a single attack was about 45. So with plate, that's 5 armor reduction. Even with like a 60 toughness, that'd be 11 damage reduction. And 23, you'd still be taking like a critical value of 10, which is pretty much a kill shot. Is it likely? No. Can it happen? Yes. And even with percentile systems, you see a whole bunch of really funny stuff happening with any kind of percentile rolls. But moving on, next you'd have your movement. This is going to be based on your race. So the humans start with 4, elves 5, then dwarves and halflings. No, halflings have 4 and dwarves have 3. It's pretty standard. There's not much you can do to adjust that number. There's no career that can give you additional movement. But there is one talent, fleet-footed, that can give you +1 to movement. That one is very hard to get. There's very few careers that offer it. Obviously, having a higher movement to be able to maneuver around people is important. So just be mindful of how far you can move and how far you can run away from people, just in case something bad happens. Next is your magic characteristic. Now, only people with a magic characteristic can cast spells. Obviously, you'd still have to use a D&D term, you'd have your arcane and divine spellcasters. The arcane would be your traditional wizards, and then divine would be your priests. There are a few classes that do provide them. You need these to cast your spells. For every point of magic, you can choose to roll a 1d10 for your casting number. We'll get into spells at a different episode, maybe the next one. The spell system is really interesting the way that these work. Also extraordinarily dangerous, which we'll get into later. So the higher number you have, the more dice you can roll, meaning the more powerful spells you can roll, but also means the more devastating you can be to the people around you. Just just your allies, and just people in general, really. So obviously the higher the number you'd want for better spellcasting. Next is your IP, which is your insanity points. And insanity points you can get from messing up spells, witnessing horrific events, getting hit by... if you take any critical wounds, you can start rolling and getting insanity points. If you accidentally ingest horrible, like, devastating substances, you could get insanity points as well. Obviously, you use your willpower to try and resist them, but if you fail the rolls, you would start accumulating insanity points. Now, as bad as it sounds, mechanically, most of them don't do too much to your character. Because every 6 insanity points you have to make another willpower test. If you fail, you get an insanity, and if you succeed, you just keep building up more. A lot of the insanities, which I could get into a later episode if people are interested, is a lot of role playing for your character. It will affect them in a negative way. They can be, zealous to a fault, relying on alcohol too much, harboring distrust to certain type of people. So it does affect your character in quite some interesting ways. I guess it really depends on how much role-playing you do as a group. It could have more or less impact for your character. And last but not least, your all-important fate points. So the number of fate points generates how many fortune points you have. So fortune points are an expendable resource you can use. You re-get them every single... Well, this is every single day, but I prefer to run every single session. You get a number of fortune points equal to your fate points. There's one talent you can get that will increase your fortune points, which is the lucky talent, which is quite nice to have because it can definitely get you out of a bind. I probably should have pulled up. Let's see, fate points. They have several different uses. And yeah, I know the main one people use them for is going to be re-rolling failed tests. But they also have several other functions as well. You can spend a fortune point to get a 10 on your initiative, giving you an extra half action per round. And what else? Sorry, I probably should have put this pulled up first, but I don't just remember. Because it doesn't really matter. I'll talk about that more later on. So they're always very important to have. Now, your actual fate points, they're going to be used to basically get out of death free. If a character takes a critical wound or would die from a disease, they would lose a fate point, and whatever was ailing them automatically is done. So they had a terrible disease, and the disease would kill them. Now, they would have died. They lose their fate point. The effect of the disease ends. If, like, say, they're bleeding out, the bleeding would stop. They would just live. And only after a character has lost all their fate points can they actually be killed off. Also, fate points can also help with dismemberment. So if a character, is going to lose a hand or a leg, an eye, they could spend fate points. Some people might just let it happen and just take the consequences just for more, I guess, really more RP reasons. There are, depending on which one you get, there are some detriments, but some people just might want to roll it out and see how it goes. So this is, so that's basically your whole profile done. It's not terribly complicated once you kind of get your head around it. I do like this system a bit more. It allows you to kind of build your characters more in different ways, because once you start having characteristics especially in your main obviously in your main profile, that are like 50, 60, you're pretty much always going to be succeeding in what you're doing. So if you have like a 60 in weapon skill, 60% of the time base you're going to be hitting. You can aim to add one, or if you have multiple attacks, you're pretty much going to always succeed in what you do. At that point, you can look at your careers and be like, hey, you know, I've been making this really good knight, but now all of a sudden I want to make him more charismatic. So I'll start looking at more of the fellowship. Maybe maybe he'll start looking at becoming a noble and work his way up through those career paths. So it does allow a bit more build diversity. You don't have to hyper focus on one thing. I mean, you still can. You can still rack up like a 70 or 80 on certain skills, but that'll definitely leave you very short in other areas. If you're playing a Dwarf Slayer, who really cares if you're not good at Fellowship? But then you'll be smacking people all around all day long in the battlefield. But in social circumstances, you won't be doing too well. But then again, you're a Dwarf Slayer, so why would you care? You got a big axe. But other than that, I think we've gone over everything for this portion of it. So next time, I might just go over some of the spell casting, because it's quite cool. They have a lot of interesting spells and effects, and it's run quite differently than other systems. So if there's anything else you guys would like to hear about with the Warhammer setting, maybe some of the other systems I've played, like the Rogue Trader, maybe some Death Watch, please let me know in the comments, and I'll take a look and maybe record a few videos that you'd want to see. With that, guys, I'll call it a day. Thanks for staying this long. Do subscribe, like, and I would love to hear from you guys. And until next time, take care of yourself.